what I really pride ourselves on, and really trying to get our counselors and teachers to be, to really counsel kids and talk about what they want to do, help them find their passion, because once they find what they are excited or passionate about, they see a possible future for themselves, then all of a sudden school becomes more important, so we are very focused on putting them on the enrolled in college, enlisted in the military, or employed with a business. That is the 3 pathways in the Bulldog Plus One initiative. So we are working very hard so that, like I say, every kid has a path and has those experiences and opportunities by the time they graduate.
Take a seat and let's dive into the education unknown. In the superintendent's chair with Dr. Anthony, where dreams unfold. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Superintendent's Chair. I'm your host, Dr. Anton Anthony, and the mission of this podcast is simple: to preserve the stories, leadership lesson, and vision of educational leaders while helping communities better understand the work behind the title of superintendent. Every superintendent has a story, every school district has a vision, and every conversation reminds us that leadership is ultimately about serving people. Today, I am honored to be joined by Dr. Sweeting, Superintendent of Thomasville City Schools. Dr. Sweeting began his career as a high school science teacher, and his journey has taken him from the classroom into curriculum, instructional leadership, innovation, ultimately to the superintendent's chair. What makes his story especially interesting is his background in science, computer science, AI, and how those experiences are now shaping his vision for the future of education. Today, we're going to talk about his leadership journey, the work happening in Thomasville City Schools, innovation, AI, and education, and what he has learned since taking the seat of the superintendent's chair. So, Dr. Sweeting, thank you so much, and welcome to the superintendent's chair, sir. I appreciate you. I know how valuable your time is, especially at the beginning of the year. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's dive right into the superintendent's chair. And I love your chair, by the way, that you're sitting in. Is that your regular chair? That's the one. It's the big boy chair. That's
right. That's right.
Started us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you into education and ultimately into the superintendent's chair.
Well, Doc, I love people. I love students. I know that I've always wanted to make a difference. And so, being in education for almost the last 26 years is what gets me up every morning. I know that I'm getting up and I'm making a difference every single day. I'm kind of following in the footsteps of a family member. My mother was also a science teacher, and I saw her go back to school when I was 12 years old to do so. And so I got to experience that and learn the value of getting an education from her. And she was one of the first ones really in my family to get a college education. My father was blue collar, and he told me that I definitely was not going to do what he did, so I need to go off and get that degree. So I did that, and of course I love science. I think seeing Halley's Comet in 1986, when parents took me to a planetarium, got me a telescope. I saw Halley's Comet come through in 86, and that kind of was the gateway into teaching science. And so I've always enjoyed science, and I enjoy the passion for it and sharing that with others. I think it's the gateway to learning all of the other subjects, So, and you can integrate science in just about everything. So almost 26 years now, and I can't believe it's been that long already.
You said 86. I was 1. It's like, so I feel like a baby, and maybe you're just old. I'm just joking.
No, I am. I'm coming. Next year I'll be 50 years old. I can't believe I'm already that old.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. So you went to school. Your bachelor's undergraduate was in education.
Yeah, I got a biology education degree and master's and doctorate in educational leadership. So I knew that getting into leadership was a way in which I could have maybe a greater impact, although I do miss the students every day. But I try to get in with the students whenever I can. I do miss those relationships, but now I've got relationships with, a lot of my directors, teachers, and helping to share my passion for just people and for wanting to make a difference in people's lives. And so, that's kind of been my goal since I got in this position, trying to just do that to a bigger effect.
I always ask people, when you get to the superintendent's chair, how many years did you spend in the classroom?
About 16 years.
16 years?
Yes, sir.
And you are definitely qualified and understand what teachers are going through on a day-to-day. Every superintendent that I mostly talk to is maybe 3-4 years. I spent 4 years. And so 16, you have paid your dues, sir.
Yes, sir. Although I got to tell you, I miss it. I do miss it.
Absolutely. So from there, 16 years in the classroom, how many years as in admin and What was the route?
Yeah, so I came from Thomas County Schools just down the street, and we were starting a STEM program, and they kind of picked me to kind of start that STEM program. So I was kind of a hybrid teacher, STEM coordinator for the system, and then became full-time like science director and did many other things, new teacher induction, started doing other things, and then eventually became curriculum director. And then this job came open, and I thought, well, I think I might want to be a superintendent. Let me go ahead and get some interview experience.
Wow.
I came in it to, not really thinking it's my first time interviewing to be a superintendent. So I was not really expecting to get the job immediately, but lo and behold, here I am. So you got to be careful. As one of my mentors said, the dog has finally caught the car, So you go, oh, wait a minute, I got the job now. What do I do? I got to do this job, Because I was thinking in my mind, this is probably going to take me, I'm going to have to go and do this a couple of times before I actually land the job, if I ever do, And so it just made sense. So I'm very, very, very familiar with Thomasville. I've been here, all my whole career in Thomas County Schools and Thomasville City Schools. So very familiar with the community. And so it made a lot of sense for me to come over here, and all the things I was doing over there in the county that I knew I enjoyed and thought made a difference. I wanted to make sure the kids over here have those exact same opportunities and just be able to expand the opportunities for what they have here in Thomasville City.
Are you all big rivalry with the county and the city? So I know they probably disown you. You're a traitor. You went to the
Yeah. Well, I again, the relationships that I developed over in the county, we kid, but yeah, we are huge competitors, of course. Wow. And so, but it's we're all here for the kids. We're all Absolutely. In it for the kids. It's all about the kids. And so, whenever we can work together, we do, and we try to leave everything else out on the athletic fields.
Absolutely. So for someone who doesn't know about South Georgia, someone who never visited Thomasville, tell us about Thomasville City Schools and the students and the community that you serve.
Yeah, Thomasville City Schools, a very diverse student pop. Thomasville itself, very historic town. It used to be it's still a very popular place for tourism, but it used to be one of the main tourism hubs here in South Georgia, and like a resort area back in the early 1900s, and so because they, the main train tracks ran through Thomasville, and so if you ever come down to Thomasville now, you got a lot of there's a lot of historic buildings that have been preserved. A lot of there's the downtown area is very, very vibrant. You got a lot of mom and pop shops, whether you're talking about clothing, you want to buy clothing, or a restaurant. Some of the top restaurants around are in Thomasville, Georgia. One that everybody likes to come to is Jonah's. That's kind of one that everybody kind of knows when I talk to people in North Georgia. Yeah,
right now, I'm going to tell them you sent me and my wife to the restaurant, Jonah's.
Yes, it's really great. If you like seafood, it is some of the best around. But they've got all kinds of accolades, across the state, across the country, really. So it's one of the top places people want to go when they come visit me. I think they just want to come and visit me, but they actually just want an excuse to go to Jonah's.
Right.
But like I said, very vibrant downtown, beautiful, brick buildings, brick pavers in the streets, and just, like I say, a lot of history here. And it's, clean and well kept, and there's a lot of pride here, of course, in Thomasville. And, Friday night lights are, apply here, it's when Friday night football games are here. The town comes out and supports the teams, and it's a lot of fun to see the community come out and show their support.
Awesome. And your district says that we are more than a school. We are a family. So what does that mean to you, and how do you intentionally build that culture of family?
So, I know that a lot of school systems will say, we're family. I have really tried to be extremely intentional about that, and making sure that people know that I do. Like I say, I love people. I love you. And being in this business, you have to love people, and I care about what happens to our students. And we started what's called a Bulldog Plus One initiative, which basically plus one stands for that year after high school. And so my goal is to have every student graduate with a diploma in their hand, say, okay, while I was at Thomasville City Schools, I interned at this business. I had a job here. I got to do a field trip here. I got to see, because we are blessed here in Thomasville with a lot lot of businesses, a lot of different businesses, a lot of opportunities, things, industry. And so I want students to take advantage of that and do that before they graduate high school. So just to give you an example, we sent a student off today, a student who just graduated with us this past year, and he's starting at University of Georgia. He came from some really rough conditions and didn't have any support. Things like you and I go down, if we need to get a bank card or a bank account, you and I just go down to the bank and get it, right? Mm-hmm. That was a hill too high for him to climb. He didn't have an ID. He didn't have some of the things that are just so easy and for us to get. He couldn't do it. So our people intentionally went and helped him to get those things, helped him apply for scholarships, helped him get, and he's got a full ride to UGA now. He is, like I said, he came from a pretty rough area, and his family conditions were not, he didn't have like any support, lost both his parents, and so he needed help. And so we saw him off today. I sent my director and director assistant to go help him move into UGA because he had no way of even getting into the dorm. He had no way of getting there. So so he was a brilliant kid. He's a brilliant kid. I mean, he 14 AP courses, straight A's. I mean, kid's a brilliant mind. And if he didn't have that kind of support, he might have just, hey, I got to stay here, take care of grandma and get a job at McDonald's and just, and that would have been some lost talent. It made it more difficult for him to do what he's doing now. So that kind of attention is what I really pride ourselves on, and really trying to get our counselors and teachers to be, to really counsel kids and talk about what they want to do, help them find their passion, because once they find what they are excited or passionate about, they see a possible future for themselves, then all of a sudden school becomes more important. So we are very focused on putting them on the enrolled in college, enlisted in the military, or employed with a business. That is that's the three pathways in the Bulldog Plus One initiative. And so we are working very hard so that, like I say, every kid has a path and has those experiences and opportunities by the time they graduate.
I call it the exposure gap. I've always served students in high poverty areas. And the difference between those students, they are not exposed. And so I think the Bulldog Plus One is a great idea to expose students, whether they're from poverty or not, but in a high poverty area, and those kids don't have the means, like getting to college. That stops a lot of our kids from enrolling because I have no way. I don't want to inconvenience my parents. And so kudos to you and your team and the young man and the students there in Thomasville City Schools. So it starts with you, though. It starts with you. So you became the leader October 2024. What are you most proud of since taking the chair? And
with my science background and such, we here at Thomasville City Schools, we started the first advanced smart manufacturing course in the state of Georgia. We did I had a partnership with Georgia Tech when I worked at Thomas County Schools, and so I brought that partnership here. And so we got together we brought some local businesses, we brought Georgia Tech, and then my administration together. When first couple of months I was here, and said, hey, what is it we can provide here at Thomasville City Schools that would better help prepare kids for the future? And so, out of that conversation, the businesses, Georgia Tech, said, listen, if we could get kids trained on, using a CNC machine, doing machining, doing computer science, working and building, going through the research and design process. And what they do is they build like a little derby car, the little race derby cars. They actually design them with Georgia Tech professors. They get to print them out on 3D printers in the classroom, and then they get to race them, and we have competition. And so we were the first school system to do that, to get that class started in the state of Georgia. And so that was really cool. And so now that is spreading. We shared the wealth. Obviously, Thomas County Schools now does it. Bainbridge does it. And so they're now expanding it to more schools. And I can't wait to see it spread to the rest of the state of Georgia. So now what we're going to do is we last year we got the three school systems. They all made their cars, and we got together on the Bainbridge campus, and we all raced our cars, and we had big competition, and it was just so cool to see it come to life. And that all started because of a conversation. We just brought the right people to the table who had the same passion that we did for wanting to make a difference and wanting to prepare kids for the future. So that's probably the one other thing I'm really, really proud of.
I don't know what movie it was, but it was Will Ferrell. He was like, if you're not first, you're last. But the advanced smart manufacturing, that you being the first school district to do it, and it will spread across all over the state. Yeah. So you're going to be the one that started it off, If you're not first, you're last. So Dr. Sweet did a great job.
That's right. That's
Your
right.
school district. It was Talladega Nights. That's what it was. I'm sorry.
Talladega Nights, right? Ricky Bobby, right?
I couldn't think about what it was. Like,
I was thinking about it.
first, that's one of my favorite movies. I love Will Ferrell. But anyway, so this year, Thomasville City Schools returned to a 180-day instructional day calendar, adding 5 instructional days. So why was returning to a 180-day calendar important to you?
You know, ever since COVID, a lot of school systems have cut down the amount of instructional days. Mm-hmm. And I have been feeling for the last couple of years that we need to get post-COVID. It's time. And the kids need that time with their teachers. I found, my first year coming in, I think we were 170 days, and we ended up having a couple hurricanes. We even had snow days.
Yeah, we did. In the same year. 1 year. Hurricanes.
So kids lost another 6, 7, 8 days. And so I'm like, man, I said, we can't, we're already short of 180 and we're losing more days because of these weather incidents. And, we really need because if I go out there to the community and say, we value classroom instruction, we value students learning all that they can, then let's get back to 180 days. Let's put our, put our money where our mouth is, and let's say, here, we're gonna make sure that the time that we spend with these kids is maximized, so that especially if we end up, hopefully we don't, we got lucky last year, but no hurricane days and such. But if we do, at least we're going to have some of those built-in days. We're already 180, so kids will be missing out on less instructional time. I just feel like kids have been missing out on way too much instructional time, and so that's why I felt like it was time. It was time to get back to 180. We're in 2026 now. COVID is way in the back of our in the rearview mirror now. So it was time to move on.
That year that you came in with the Hurricane Helene and the snowstorms, I thought the world was coming to an end. I was preaching. I was like, "Hey, here's the signs of the time."
Yeah, man, that was crazy.
It was a crazy year. It was did they still work 190 days?
Yes.
Oh, they still work. Okay, they just didn't have that time.
They work 109 days. Now you got 180 instructional days. All right. So this is one question that I have for you, because we have a lot of new teachers now. And so, coming out of field, you having served and having led new teacher induction, what have you learned about what new teachers need from schools and district leaders in order to succeed? You and I and everybody in education is very familiar with the research when it comes to those first 5 years and how critical they are. That's when teachers leave the classroom. And the number one complaint is, I didn't receive the administrative support that I needed. And so, I talk about wanting to provide the Chick-fil-A experience, not just to our community and our parents and our students, but also to our teachers, and especially our new teachers. I try to encourage the new teachers that, because the biggest mistake I think that new teachers do make is they're afraid to ask for help. They talk about, I see that even if it's their, mentor teacher that's right there down the hall, they see that veteran teacher moving around busy, and they're like, oh, they look busy, I don't want to bother them, and so they sit there and they suffer in silence. And so I encourage these teachers, and our new teacher induction, I go to new teacher induction that first day, and I tell them that. I said, listen, this is what I've experienced. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So we got to make sure we're providing support for those teachers and checking in, not just the first year, but really those first 5 years. We need to have somebody that is checking in on them, just making sure that they know that we care about them and we want them to be successful, because when they're successful, obviously our students are successful and we're all successful. So I remember being a new teacher myself, and nothing against the people who hired me, but basically I was handed a textbook and a chalkboard and said, here you go teach.
Go for it.
I had a chalkboard. It was probably about a 5 foot by 5 foot small, little tiny chalkboard. I was out in a portable classroom. You talk about just teaching from scratch.
Wow.
I didn't have a mentor teacher. I did a little suffering in silence, but I did reach out to the teachers I could and get some help. But new teachers have to do that, and we need to make sure that they know that we love them, we care about them, and we want to provide that support.
Hey, we both need to go and start a Bulldog Plus One all over the state. And so for teachers, not only for
Yes.
kids, but for teachers, it's like, look, we're here for you. Here's your
Yes.
support, because most of the time teachers, they're not quitting because they don't have the supplies. They're quitting
Right.
because the support is not there. And
Mhm.
no one went above and beyond. Just like you went to take the kid. Well, your team went to take
Yeah.
the kid to college. Sometimes you have to check on people outside of
Yes.
the 9 to 5,
And push professional learning. I want people to go and do professional learning. When I came in the door, I doubled and tripled the amount of professional learning days that our teachers were receiving, and so there's a lot of good, smart people out there providing that professional learning. And these teachers need to get their phone numbers. They need to be exposed to these people, and they need to go to this training. And it's okay if they miss a day of class and they've got to get a sub for them. We make up for it in spades as far as the investment that putting a sub in their classroom so they can go and do a local RESA training that's being provided in their subject area to make the networking connections with the other teachers. That makes them feel like I'm not alone, and so that's invaluable.
And then they can use it as well. So when they're coming, whatever strategy that they use, they could use that when they come back, and hopefully that'll expedite teaching and learning in the classroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Question: when you look at student achievement, what do you believe a superintendent can directly influence? So sitting from your chair, what do you believe that you could do and have a thumb on that can influence student achievement?
Like you said, it starts at the top, and so, with me starting, talking to my directors, talking to my principals, and I do have conversations even with the instructional coaches and teachers themselves. I have to make it known that classroom instruction is that's what we're here for. If we didn't have students, we wouldn't have jobs. So we got to make sure we take care of our students, and we got to make sure that we hold them. We have that bar high, but we try to provide those supports. I say meet those students where they are, and let's you might not make it here, but we're going to grow them. We're going to meet those kids where they are. We're going to differentiate. We're going to figure out where they are and make sure that you get to know your kids. That's probably the most important thing about a teacher. And I think my role was as a teacher is getting to know your kids and make sure that they know that you care, right? So that they care to do the things that you're asking them to do. And so, emphasizing relationships, I think that's probably the most important thing I can do. And that everything else, I think, flows from that.
And I think that's not only with teachers and students, that's with everyone around you. You have to know your directors. It's because it's not about because you are the superintendent. I never wanted anybody to look at me because I was a superintendent that you're going to do what I said. I wanted you to do it because the relationship of the balloons, the relationships that I built over time and the influence that I have, that you would want to support the job that we're doing together. But yeah. So my next question, what is something about being superintendent that you could not fully understand until you actually sat in the chair? I got a couple of stories, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, well, I just had a great conversation with one of my former chief academic officer, just became superintendent of Grady County Schools just down the street. And so, but I had talked to him as he was applying, and I was supporting him doing it and trying to help him all I could. I talked to him about once you're in the chair, you feel the weight. Then you realize all of the school system, transportation, facilities, everything is on your shoulder. You feel the weight. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And so. And then when he got into that role, he gave me a call about a week later, and he says, "Man, you are right." He's like, "It's something you just you can't experience until you're in it,
right?"
And so that's what really got me. And I tell you what, one of the most important things I didn't foresee is that the importance of having a very good administrative assistant. Your secretary, the person that's going to take care of you. I have a really good one here. And matter of fact, she's getting ready to retire, and I hate it. But she's been doing this 40 years, and it's about time she's not ready to go. But I was able to benefit from her the last 2 years. Those first week or two that I was in this job, I was coming in at 5:30 in the morning, not leaving until 8 o'clock at night. And my administrative assistant, who professionally is calling me Dr. Sweeting, she stops me. She goes, "Scott." She calls me by my first name. She goes, "Stop." She says, "You need to slow down." She goes, "You are burning yourself out." She goes, "I have seen several superintendents. I've worked for several." She goes, "You are burning yourself out." And she says, if you burn yourself out, you're no good to any of us. So we need you here. We need you healthy. And I went like she always just like all of a sudden became like
your mom,
mentor mom to me, And I was like, wow, but she was right. She was right, And so there's only so much you can do. So what I think about is, as I go home in the evenings, did I push that rock up the hill just a little bit farther? Did I make? And some days it might fall back on you, But if I feel like, some days if I made a little progress, okay, I got to be happy with that. And if I can leave it to the next day, I'm going to do that. But I try to work more normal. Now, sometimes you have to work late. You got to come in early. It just happens. But balance. I talked a lot about work-life balance in this job, and unfortunately, like I said, we've seen some of our own colleagues, former superintendents that have passed recently. And so we really have to take care of ourselves because, like I say, if we're not here, there's nothing we can do. We've got to take care of ourselves.
One thing that I've learned at being a superintendent, and I didn't understand before you take the job, I wanted to know, why do so many superintendents leave? And then I sat in the chair and I was like, oh, is that?
Yeah, you feel that weight. Yeah, you're like, okay, I see. And I've talked to many superintendents who have just retired, and they talk about how there's that feeling of that weight coming off.
Yes. And
they're like, my blood pressure got better.
Yes.
I lost weight.
Yeah.
I slept better, So I'm like, man, I don't realize I've been doing this almost 2 years now. And I probably don't realize just the amount of weight that I'm feeling. I've come used to, And so I won't know until I retire to get that feeling, that weight just all of a sudden be lifted.
Now, Superintendent, this is a part of the show where we ask 5 questions and 5 quick answers. You are now in the chair.
5 seconds. Beach or mountain?
Beach, absolutely. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, so I was all about the beach.
One word that best describes your leadership.
Can I say 2? How about pragmatic and passionate, man?
Awesome. One word to describe your district.
Innovative.
One quality every superintendent must possess.
A love of people.
And one thing people may be surprised to learn about you.
Okay, so before I became a teacher, I had a stint at organ and tissue donation team where I would be part of being part of that team that would go in and actually harvest human tissue, which can freak some people out. But I did that. And so that was, you talk about really giving you perspective on life. When you see that all the time, that's what I did. And so, but it helped other people who needed that tissue. But I got involved in that, and that was crazy. That's another story for another day. But
I still want to hear, what do you mean harvest human tissue?
So I worked at the University of Florida Tissue Bank, and so in the North Florida Lions Eye Bank. So when somebody passes away, if you're an organ tissue donor, I would be part of that team that would go in and actually help to harvest that tissue, whether it be, it could be skin, saphenous vein, heart pericardial tissue, all that kind of stuff that can be, that when somebody's an organ tissue donor, that instead of just, somebody being cremated and not just going to waste, we can actually save lives here who need that tissue. And so, I think probably in the next 10 or 15 years, we won't even need that anymore, because we're getting to the point now where we can actually 3D print organs, tissue, human tissue out of human cells. So, but it's still around. But it was a big thing when I was in college, and this is before you needed a actual certification to do the job. I was actually trained on the job. So yeah, so that was.
Ew! I was waiting to say this. Ew!
It was super interesting to me. I mean, I was a science guy, so I learned a lot about the human body, as you can imagine, and so that's why I taught human anatomy physiology my first several years. I taught it at the college level too. So I still love human anatomy physiology. It fascinates me how the human body works the way it does.
That is something that I wouldn't dare do, especially a dead body. Oh Lord, it's just but hey. Yeah. Thank you for that.
That might have been too much. Maybe that was too extreme. But you said you want something surprising. I think that was surprising.
that was definitely a surprise. I thought you were going to say, I don't know, like fishing. You said harvesting.
Of course, I got to go there. So
every superintendent who takes a seat in the superintendent's chair receives the same final question. Looking back over your career, what is one decision that truly tested you as a leader, and what did that experience teach you?
Man, I think what got me is, and having to, act as a superintendent, I had to let an administrator go. I had to, after working with the administrator and trying to do all I could, it just wasn't going to work out. So I had to tell the person, listen, we're not going to have you back. And I had to do that pretty early in my superintendency, and that was really hard because you care about the person. They're a great person, but they just they were not going to work out for the school system. So I had to let them go. So that has been extremely difficult.
Sir, I appreciate you, Dr. Sweden. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit in the superintendent's chair and for sharing your leadership journey, your commitment to students, and the work happening in Thomasville City Schools. Your story is a reminder that leadership is a journey of preparation from the classroom to district leadership and ultimately in the superintendent's chair. Every experience can prepare us for opportunities we may not see coming. As an education continues to evolve through science, technology, innovation, and AI, your story reminds us that while the tools may change, the purpose remains the same, creating opportunities for students and preparing them for their future. To everyone watching or listening, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Superintendent's Chair. I hope this conversation reminds you that behind every superintendent's title is a leader making difficult decisions, building teams, and working every day to serve children. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with an educator, parent, leader, or student who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep leading and never forget, dreams unfold in the superintendent's chair.
Take a seat and let's